Valentine's Day. Oh, of course I said that right as I walked away. Someone got in the waiting room. We are almost there. Valentine's Day is on Saturday this year. And of course, that is the holiday of love and the holiday of sweets. So I thought it would be a good time to redo a sweet treat topic for today and how we can eat sweet treats in a somewhat more nourishing way. Now, I also never want to say, don't eat just a chocolate bar. If you love Snickers and if you love Reese's, like, you have my permission to do those things. A lot of times people are like, oh, you're not supposed to eat anything with sugar if you're around Megan. The idea is moderation, and I kind of hate that term because everyone can say, oh, this is in moderation, when it's a very different idea of what I would say for moderation. So if we are someone who loves our sweet treats and we're having candy and sweet stuff all the time, we might want to change to some alternatives. If you're just willing to experiment and you like to cook, that's also where we can look for some alternatives, because there are also ways that we can make really sweet, really yummy things in ways that are a bit more nourishing for our bodies, a bit less on the sugar scale. And really what my goal is in general is always to pull back and pull away from the ultra processed foods. If you have not yet read the book Ultra Processed People, highly recommend it, because there's a lot of really good information in there on why we want to pull away from the ultra processed foods and make our own stuff. And it doesn't mean we have to make everything from scratch. I'm going to show you a lot of pre-made stuff today too. Some of my favorite sweet stuff is behind me. We'll kind of end class with some of my favorite just products to buy. But we want to be looking at how we can make food with much more real food ingredients, less synthetic ingredients, sugars that are a little bit more nourishing, our body knows what to do with them, than just cane sugar and high fructose corn syrup. That's the goal here, is how can we just eat our sweet foods in a way that our body knows what to do with them and we're not spiking our blood sugar all over the place all the time. So with that, we have actually just 2 recipes today that we're going to go over, like 2 actual following the rules recipes. And then we have a couple of things that we're just going to put together that are kind of fun for treats to have out on the counter, maybe put in a lunchbox here and there, and then I'll show you some of my favorite products. So that's kind of our agenda. So we're going to put something in the oven, so let's get moving on that. I will definitely send you recipes when I send out the recordings. Our first item on the agenda is chocolate strawberry cookie bars. So if you've ever made a cookie bar, it's not too far from that, but this is a very low glycemic version of one, and we're just going to spruce it up with some strawberries and make it a little bit more fun. So our starch in question is almond flour. I get mine from Costco because they have these gigantic bags for pretty darn affordable, which is fantastic. So we are going to whisk together. Oh, you know what? I skipped a step. We got to do our liquids first. Sorry. All right, we're going to do an egg first. We're going to do our liquids. If you have come to class with me before, you know that I'm a big proponent of the sourcing of our animal proteins. It really does make a difference as far as how much saturated fat, how much nutrients, all the good stuff that's in that food, how that animal lived. So when we're talking about eggs and egg products like dairy or meat products, we want to look for grass-fed or pasture-raised. So whenever I'm using an egg, I'm using a pasture-raised egg, and that is different than pasteurized. They're 2 different things. Pasture-raised means the chicken was out in the pasture getting sunlight and vitamin D and eating bugs and dirt and all the good stuff, and less processed food for that chicken equals a healthier egg for us. And you can always tell because the yolk is going to be that kind of deeper orange color and not so yellow. You can find them everywhere now. Everywhere has pasture-raised eggs. They're usually $1 or sometimes $2 more, depending on what store you're at. I know that Whole Foods, the pasture-raised eggs are a lot more money, even though it's the same brand. I don't know why. Okay, so we've got our 1 egg. So that's giving us some protein, some healthy fats. All right, sorry, people are popping into the waiting room. Then we are going to do our almond butter and our oil. So I have peanut butter, to be honest. I just have Sprouts creamy peanut butter. Anytime you're buying a peanut butter, an almond butter, any type of nut butter, you're looking at the ingredients to make sure it's just that nut and maybe salt. So this just says peanuts, or this is actually organic peanuts. This Sprouts brand was $4 for an organic peanut butter that is just peanuts. So they're not super expensive. Almond butter is usually going to be a little bit more expensive. You buy which one your family likes and what you have tolerances or intolerances to. So we're going to do a third cup of almond butter. First, I'm going to do my coconut sugar so I don't get my 3rd cup all sticky. So we're gonna do coconut sugar, a 1/3 cup. Why coconut sugar? Because it is lower on the glycemic scale. There's coconut sugar, kind of just looks like brown sugar. Looks, acts, tastes like brown sugar. On the glycemic index of 0 to 100, 100 being white sugar and how much that spikes our sugar. We want to be 50 or below. That's what we consider low glycemic, so it's not spiking our blood sugar quite as much. Coconut sugar is around a 25. So it's nice and low on the glycemic scale. It's still going to bring our blood sugar up a little bit, and that's okay. We actually like that because when we're eating something sweet, our brain tastes it and tells our body to produce insulin. So if we're eating artificial sweeteners, that's actually a false message. So we like a little bit of an increase if we're going to taste sweet. So I like coconut sugar a lot. Plus, because it's from coconut, you're getting a lot of the good nutrients from the coconut as well. So a 1/3 cup of coconut sugar, a 1/3 cup of whatever nut butter you happen to be using. I'm sorry, a 1/4 cup. And this was a brand new jar, so it's nice and liquidy, which I love because once you refrigerate it, they get kind of hard and harder to cook with. I just opened this one today. Costco has almond butter and peanut butters that are natural and don't have all the sugars and oils added in. Like you can find the nut butters are really easy to find natural. Do check the ingredients though, because sometimes I'll see that it says natural on the front and it still has oil or sugar added. I'm not really, the regulations on labels are a little bit wacky. All right. If you have a nut allergy, you can absolutely use sunflower seed butter for this. No problem. It'll still work great. Then we're going to use a 1/4 cup of melted coconut oil or olive oil. So I have mostly a 1/4 cup, and I'm going to use a little bit to grease my pan over here. Just pour that in. Save that. Now, coconut oil versus avocado oil versus olive oil is really going to be up to you. It's going to work fine no matter what oil you use in this recipe, as long as it's melted. The difference is going to be your own personal taste needs and your own personal nutrition needs. So I like coconut oil for baking. It has what's called MCTs, medium chain triglycerides. So these cross the blood-brain barrier and they're a lot better for our brain than, let's say, a butter, which is also saturated fat. However, if you are someone who has a high cardiac risk, cardiovascular risk, if you are already on medications for a cardiovascular risk, you may be on a lower saturated fat diet than the general person, in which case maybe we do want to lean more in the olive oil, avocado oil direction. You could replace it with applesauce if you are on like a strict, very low fat diet. The texture is going to be a little bit different, but you can do that. Okay, so we've got our egg, our almond butter, or peanut butter. We've got our oil. We need to do our coconut or our extracts. We already did our coconut sugar. I have vanilla. You're going to do about a teaspoon of your extracts. I just eyeball it. And almond extract. If you are not an extract person, I challenge you to become one. They add so much flavor to your foods with just a very little bit. So I know they're pricey, but you don't have to use very much. So I like a vanilla almond combination. If you don't have almond extract, it's okay. It's not required. All right, we're just gonna whisk that up while I let this person in. And then we're gonna go back to that almond flour where I tried to start us out. Okay, so now almond flour. You could use a regular flour, but we're looking for how can we get, again, lower glycemic and higher fiber. You're gonna get more fiber and very, very little carbohydrate count from your almond flour versus a typical regular flour. Sometimes I'll use chickpea flour. What's another flour that's in this? Coconut flour could work because these are they're not rising. If you're doing like a cupcake or a cake and you want it to rise, you don't want to use something like a chickpea flour or almond because there's no starch in those, but this one's gonna be totally fine. So we're gonna do a full 1 3/4 cup of almond flour. It doesn't really matter if it's blanched or not. The unblanched is just gonna have a little bit more fiber. Either way, they're going to turn out fine. mixture 1 3/4 cup almond flour. We're going to do some baking powder, a teaspoon. And a little sprinkle of sea salt. Just whisk that all up too. Sometimes I'll double or even triple this recipe and put it into a much bigger baking dish if I'm wanting to serve a lot of people. I personally love cookie bars instead of regular cookies because they're so much easier. You just pour them in and bake it and cut them into squares rather than each dollop. I'm not a big baker. I don't love baking. So if anytime I can make it a lot easier for myself, I will. Use my spatula, get it all out of there. So this is essentially like any other just cookie dough mix. We're just using some lower glycemic, higher fiber, more real ingredients than we would find perhaps in a ready-made cookie mix. And just make sure that's all stirred in. And then we get to put the fun stuff in. So you're gonna do about 1/3 cup. I just eyeball it just to see how much I think I wanna be in there, of chopped strawberries and chocolate chips. So I already have my chopped strawberries here. Stir that in. I'm going to use my minis. I really like this brand, Enjoy Life. Enjoy Life. You can get these at a lot of different grocery stores. They don't have allergens. They're dairy free, which is really nice. I like them because they're mini. It's kind of hard to find mini chocolate chips. And I just think they're more fun to eat and they're really cute. So you could also stir in nuts, walnuts, chopped pecans, like whatever kind of fun toppings you want. I think I might actually put in some shredded coconut on this one. So when you buy shredded coconut, get unsweetened shredded coconut. I guess that's the bottom of the barrel on that one. Shredded coconut in the baking aisle is typically sweetened and very, very sweetened, very high in sugar. All right, easy enough. We're just gonna put this into our greased 8x8 baking dish and bake it at 350 for about 20 minutes. And then that's it. So remember I had already poured some coconut oil in here. So I'm just gonna rub that around, make sure it's nice and greased because this is a very sticky recipe, by the way. Pour it in. And if you like a real thick cookie bar, you definitely want to double this recipe, by the way. These are going to be like thin-ish, kind of a little bit thicker than a typical cookie would be. I also happen to be using a 9x9 instead of an 8x8 because I don't have an 8x8, so mine are going to be a little bit extra thin and won't quite fill up the square, but that's okay. The recipe is, it says 8x8, that's what it should be. And you can always sprinkle extra toppings on top. This is a really fun one for kid participation because they can sprinkle extra stuff in. There's not a whole lot of like hard work involved. What's nice too is if you use sun butter in this one, this is a lunchbox friendly. So again, if you have little ones and you want to put something special in their lunchbox on Friday for Valentine's Day, just use sun butter so it's not free and then it should be allowed on any campus. And then you're not just loading your kids up with, candy bars, which is fun again once in a while, but trust me, they'll get plenty from their classroom activities. Okay, so we're gonna pop this in the oven. So see, because mine is 9x9, I always kind of just like leave some extra space over there, but that's all it looks like. And we're gonna pop it in again, 350 for 20 minutes. And these will save in the fridge for a whole week. So I plan on putting this in my kids' lunch boxes on Friday, or I guess not lunch boxes because we use peanut butter. So they'll have to have it for their after school snack, but it'll be fine in the fridge until then. They're also really fun if you want to use heart cookie cutters for Valentine's Day. Because it's in a bar, you can get a little bit creative in how you serve them, and it'll make a bunch of little hearts. So that's a kind of cool thing for a little gift at the office or for your neighborhood if you just want to give everyone a little heart cookie. Okay, moving on. This one is a single serve recipe, which I love doing because sometimes we just need a little dessert just for me instead of serving to the whole community. So it's called a mug cake. You can use a mug. I kind of like using a ramekin, like a single serve ramekin. I just think it's kind of cute and festive, and I like the texture when it's a little bit more spread out rather than my mugs are more narrow, and so it ends up being thick, but sometimes it doesn't cook all the way through. So use whatever you want, but it's a single serve. I did pour a little bit of that coconut oil in here. Okay, and we're gonna use a lot of the same ingredients we already have. We're just gonna jazz it up a little bit. So this is a single serve chocolate lava cake. Woo, love that. So excited I get to eat this today. Okay, so we're gonna do a 1/4 cup of our almond flour again. And you're just gonna pour it all in the same thing that you're already using. 2 tablespoons of, where'd my cocoa powder go? Cocoa powder or cacao powder, whichever one you happen to have. If you don't know the difference, cacao powder is the lesser processed cocoa powder. They're both really highly nutritious. They both have a lot of magnesium. You're getting extra nutrients in cacao powder, a little bit less in the cocoa powder because it's been heated. But don't worry too much about it. Some people are like, oh, I can't ever have cocoa powder. Like, yes, you can. If you like the taste of cocoa powder, please use that. It's not like a high sugar option. Ooh, mine's a little bit hard on top. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 tablespoons. Man, how did this happen? My husband must have left the lid off of this thing. He puts cocoa powder in his smoothies. 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Excuse me while I wash my hand for a second. Then we're going to use our sweetener. Again, I'm using a lower glycemic option. This one is called date syrup. Date syrup, like coconut sugar, is around that 20-25 on the glycemic scale, but it's liquid. So as opposed to coconut sugar, which is that solid brown sugar looking form, we want a liquid for this one. You could use honey, you could use maple syrup, but those are going to be slightly higher on the glycemic scale, still better for us than white sugar, and just about a tablespoon. I get these online. Come on, date syrup, it's stuck there at the bottom. The Date Lady is the brand that I buy, but there's lots of brands of date syrup. Of course, it's like stuck in there. Huh, hold on a second. I'll show you my trick. I always have chopsticks at the ready for just this type of occasion. Another low sugar alternative that I really like that's liquid is allulose. If you haven't used allulose before, allulose. Allulose is very low on the glycemic scale, like a 1 to 5, but it's from a natural root substance. And so it's actually, it's like a stevia where it's a natural product, but it's really low in sugar. This is very clumpy. There it goes. There we go. And again, like if this wasn't coming out, I'd probably just go reach for my maple syrup, which I might still do because this is still pretty darn clumpy. I don't know how that happened. Hold on a second. It's only a tablespoon, so it's not like I'm not worried about this being slightly more glycemic. So I'm using maple syrup now. All right, we're gonna go back to our vanilla extract and just a teaspoon of that. Oh boy, I'm kind of a mess today. And an egg. So seriously, all the same ingredients as before. We're just making this one chocolate flavored. A little bit of shell in there. All right, and whisk it up. And this is again where you can add whatever toppings you want. Since this is so chocolatey, I'm not going to add more chocolate chips, but you absolutely could. If you're a chocolate kind of person. I'm going to throw in some extra strawberries and make mine strawberry chocolate lava cake.
Hi, Nolan. I haven't seen him yet.
I think somebody is not muted in there. If you could mute yourself, please. Okay, and then just make sure that you cover it with a paper towel. We're gonna toss it in the microwave, but because there's egg in it, it can explode. So we're gonna put this in the microwave for 1 to 2 minutes. Here is my trick for you. Don't do the full 2 minutes all at once. Do 30 seconds, give it a little shake, 30 seconds again, give it a little shake and test it. Because of the egg, again, you don't want a chocolate egg explosion in your microwave. So up to 2 minutes total in 30-second increments. So let's do 30 seconds. And I could have put coconut on here. I could have put nuts on here. You could do whipped cream on top, but it's a nice little treat that is essentially 100 calories. It might pop your blood sugar up a couple of points. You're not going to see a whole heck of a lot, just depending on how much sugar you add. And it tastes good, and it kind of satisfies that sweet treat. So you could multiply that, do double, do triple, and just add more ramekins, and you might need to add a little bit extra time. But that's so easy. Okay, another 30 seconds. If you ever have like a dark chocolate candy bar or something, you could also put it on your grater and do chocolate shavings at the end when you're ready to eat it, or a little bit of powdered sugar. It actually makes quite a pretty display. My mom has little heart-shaped ramekins at her house, so I've done this before in those, and it's just kind of pretty to set at people's spaces. And again, it feels like this sort of decadent treat that's not a super treat. So that was 1 minute total. And I think that's done. So the recipe says 1 to 2 minutes. It's really going to depend on your microwave, how hot it gets. So that was 2 30-second increments. And I have a little chocolatey cake. And as soon as that cools, I will pop that out so you can see what it looks like, that it's not just pudding. So just give it a minute while we talk about other stuff. And I'll pop this out for you. But it's very hot. When you take ramekins out of the microwave, please have a paper towel or something so that you don't burn yourself. Okay, so while our cookies cook and while that is cooling, I want to do just some other kind of fun stuff that don't require recipes at all. You may have already seen this idea on Pinterest, but these are little raspberry thimble kisses. And I get white chocolate chips. There's nothing necessarily healthy about white chocolate chips. They're probably the most sugary of the chocolate family, but they're very festive and they taste good. And you'll see here in a second how. So I take my raspberry and I pop in my white chocolate chips until it's full. And it's a little thimble kiss. And how cute is that? And they taste really yummy and they're fun. If you have a little bowl of these, like at your desk, if you're someone who likes to have candy out for everyone, you put this out in the morning, or again, in a lunchbox for a kid. Even if you just pack this for yourself for a work day at lunch, what a special, fun little treat. It takes 2 seconds and they really taste quite festive. So I put like 2 chocolate chips in each one, or white chocolate chips. You could do regular chocolate chips too. I actually found this idea at Christmas time because someone did a little bit of whipped cream and they were like little Santa hats. But what a cute little Valentine's Day treat snack, right? And they look festive and they taste good. You could sprinkle them with cinnamon if you wanted to. So that's a raspberry thimble kiss. And I have a little handout that I'm going to email you guys that has all these little cutesy ideas on them. Another cool, fun idea is doing graham cracker Nutella cookies. So I want to show you these great graham crackers. This brand is called Must Love. And they don't come in the regular long graham cracker packs. They're squares, as you can see. Okay. But what is so cool about this brand is that they are date sweetened. So they don't have sugar, they have a fruit sweetener, if you will. So if we read the ingredients, unbleached flour, which means that there's no bleach in it, dates and palm oil. And the palm oil comes from, they have a little asterisk that it is sustainably farmed, salt and baking soda. That's it. So we actually have a very low sugar option for a graham cracker. The total per serving size is 10 of these little squares. 10 cookies, has 15 grams of carb, 2 grams of fiber, and only 4 grams of sugar with 0 added. So it's a very great alternative, especially if you're someone who's really monitoring blood sugar, if we're dealing with a lot of insulin resistance. This tastes like such a yummy cookie option. My kids love these. We'll make like tiny little s'mores out of these ones where we'll do one chocolate bar and one little marshmallow on top and just make little sandwiches. I get this on the Thrive Market website, but I've also seen them at Whole Foods and Mother's. I have not yet seen this at Sprouts or Stater Brothers. There are other brands. You don't have to buy these. I just kind of like to give you options. So what I like to do for these is I will get a square and I will put, you guys are gonna love this one, chocolate spread. This is also the Date Lady. Okay, same brand as my date syrup. This is her chocolate spread. So think of this as Nutella without a ton of sugar and without nuts. So the ingredients here are dates, cocoa, coconut oil, cocoa butter, vanilla extract, and sea salt. So that's all that's in here. It isn't a sugar-loaded chocolate feast. It's just a chocolate spread. It has a really nice texture and consistency to it. Ooh.
Listening to my Zoom class.
All right, so let me show you the texture here. It's nice and thick. Okay, so it's not even runny, so it really spreads quite nicely. So a kind of fun little treat is to spread some on a graham cracker. And layer on some banana slices, or in our case, since we have them, some strawberries or a raspberry. And what a yummy little cutesy treat. And if you sprinkled that maybe with some coconut flakes or something like that, that would be so fun. So there's that one. And this, the Date Lady stuff, you can also get on Amazon. So that's her chocolate spread. The only other Nutella alternative I've ever seen and tasted that actually tasted really good was the brand Prolon, Prolon. They are the same company that makes the fasting protocol products, but they have a couple of other just random, like really low glycemic products. And they have a chocolate spread that is nuts and dates and chocolate, and that one is also really good and probably a bit more Nutella than chocolate like this one. Those are the only two I've ever tasted that are alternatives to Nutella and actually taste really, really yummy. So that's another option. The other ones I wanted to show you, this brand I love. This is a brand called Just Ingredients. Just Ingredients. They sell protein powders. So you can buy it from their website, Just Ingredients. They also now sell some at Sprouts, which is really cool. And they sell big containers, but from their website, you can also buy these little individual trial packs. I think you can buy it in a pack of 6 or 8. And they have chocolate. They have roasted peanut butter chocolate. They have mint chocolate. They have strawberry. They have lemon. I mean, they have like this endless list of flavors, and they usually have seasonal flavors. And their ingredients are whey, grass-fed whey, coconut milk, whatever flavors they're using. So with their peanut butter one, it's pea protein, peanut flour, cacao, pumpkin seed, and collagen with stevia and monk fruit. So all of their powders are sweetened with stevia and monk fruit. So they're good quality ingredients, they're protein powders, and they have all of these yummy sweet flavors. So I listed on your handout a bunch of what I like to do with these. You could, of course, make a smoothie, right? That would be perfectly great, and have like a chocolate smoothie. But sometimes what I will do is I will take like their roasted chocolate peanut butter and I will throw it in a blender with cottage cheese. And it makes this cheesecakey type of textures because it's really thick because of the cottage cheese, but we blended it. So we get rid of the curds. We add this sweet chocolate peanut butter, and maybe I might put some peanuts on top of it. And now I have this like Reese's cheesecake type of situation. And that's so good. Per one of these packets, you probably want to do a cup and a half of cottage cheese. You could do the same thing with Greek yogurt and just stir it in. Sometimes if I'm late at night, kind of like, oh, I just really want something sweet, I'll just stir a little bit of like a quarter of this pack into a little cup of Greek yogurt, and it really is satisfying because of the creaminess. You could also do overnight oats or a chia pudding, also with the sweeter kind of chocolatey flavors, and have yourself a sweet option for breakfast or a brunch, something like that. So these are really, really nice to have on hand. I'll show you. This is how much I love them. I just constantly have these packs in different flavor bags in my pantry at all times, because you never know when you're gonna need a mint chocolate smoothie for St. Patrick's Day, maybe, right? Like they're fun to have. A few other just products that I like outside of recipes and putting things together. This brand, Bear, B-E-A-R, has dried fruit options. They have fruit roll-ups. They have little fruit gummy things. If you are a fruit gummy person, if you have kids or grandkids who love little gummy things, I love these. These are great for Valentine's. So my son is actually giving these to all of his little friends at school this year because it's just fruit. So if I look at the ingredients, there they are. Dried fruit roll-ups, apples, pears, raspberries, and black carrot juice. So this is a fruit roll-up I can get behind, right? So and these are kind of fun for having in your office, having in your backpack, because they taste like a fruit roll-up and they're good for us. Another brand I love is Smash. You can get these at Sprouts. This is just jelly, but it's chia jelly. So the raspberry flavor is raspberries, dates, chia seeds, lemon juice, and fruit pectin to put it all together. So I'm getting 50 to 60% less added sugar in my jam than I would in a typical jam. They sell them in jars too, but I really kind of like having the little packets because they have a bunch of different ones. They have blueberry, strawberry, raspberry. I will throw this into overnight oatmeal, into overnight chia pudding, because it adds some sweetness to that otherwise somewhat plain flavor. So my kids really like it. We make a lot of Dutch baby pancakes for breakfast on Saturday or on weekend mornings, and I will stir this in. It kind of gives that swirly look to it. That could be really fancy and special for Valentine's Day. Gives that sweetness without being a lot of sugar. This brand is a favorite for candy, Skinny Dipped. They have all different types of chocolate covered almonds, chocolate covered, peanut butter almonds. They have a white chocolate one. They have seasonal ones. They had a peppermint one over Christmas that was so good. I am just a chocolate covered almond fangirl. So I have these in my office or in my pantry probably at all times. And I actually get them at CVS because there's one by our house and they always have them. So these are really easy to find. Gas stations will usually have them. And they use stevia and maple syrup as their sugar. So your ingredients here are almonds, dark chocolate, sustainably raised palm oil, peanut flour, maple sugar, and sea salt in this particular one. So all recognizable ingredients, and you're getting a very minimal blood sugar spike. And finally, for products, this is a new one that I'm trying out. I really like it. This brand is called 7 Sundays. I got this at Sprouts. I know they carry this at Whole Foods and Mother's as well, and I actually have started to see it at other stores like Stater Brothers. 7 Sundays carries cereal and granolas. They might also have trail mixes now. But again, they have ingredients that I really like, and they are very low glycemic, whereas most cereals and granolas that are sweet are very, very sugary. So this is their dark chocolate raspberry one. It has almonds, coconut, sunflower seeds, dates, pecans, pumpkin seeds, coconut oil, flax seeds, chia seeds, dark chocolate, cocoa powder, raspberries, vanilla, and sea salt. Sounds amazing. We put this on our yogurt a couple of nights ago with some actual raspberries, and the kids were just dying. They were like, this is so good, Mom. It tasted like a parfait, and it had chocolate chips in it. And I didn't see any blood sugar spikes. I actually tested myself afterwards just to see, because I'm always leery of granolas. So this is a really great option, and they have lots of flavors too. All right, our cookies are done. Look at that timing. I actually think it needs a little bit more time. It's a little smushy in the middle. But there we go. There's our cookie bars. So I'm going to put this in for another 5 minutes. So mine was 25 minutes total. It's just a little bit squishy, but you can see how then you could cut it into bars. I could take my little heart-shaped cookie cutter. That's probably what I'll do. So I'm going to pop this in for another 5. And let me take my other guy out. That's nice and cool. So I would usually eat it out of the ramekin. I think it's cuter, but so that you can see how that came out and like what that texture is. Very cakey, real kind of squishy and moist. So there's our fun little dessert, and I'll put it with my raspberries. And look, I just have lunch of sweetness. Okay, I see some questions, so let's get to those. Graham cracker brand. Oh, thank you, Carolyn, for putting those in. So just so we can see them up close. Must love classic graham crackers. And again, the only downside of these is they don't come in the long packs like a regular size graham cracker. So if you're looking for a real s'more, they won't work. And then you wanted to see the chocolate chips. Chocolate chips are Enjoy Life. You can get these at pretty much any grocery store now because they're allergen free. So a lot of parents love them. Enjoy Life brand. What else? Is palm oil healthy? Oh my gosh, such a good question, because yes, we've seen a lot of palm oil today. So there's a couple of downsides of palm oil. One is that it is saturated fat, just like coconut oil. And so it's definitely a type of fat that we don't want to have a ton of because of it being saturated. It's a type of fat that does give us a lot of fuel, so we don't need to completely eliminate it, but the recommendations are no more than 10% of your daily of your fat allotment to come from saturated fats. So it shouldn't be your go-to, but it's okay if it's in some things here and there. The other thing with palm oil is that it's very tied to deforestation. So you want to make sure that if you are eating something with palm oil, it does specifically say sustainably raised. That means it is from a farm that is growing the palms specifically for that purpose. And they're not going and deforesting a forest to give us oil. They're actually just like a farm that's growing the palm, taking the stuff away from the palm for food, regrowing palms, that type of thing. So that's why I was, every time, if you'll notice, looking for sustainably raised palm oil. I kind of wish that a lot of these had coconut oil instead, because coconut oil, the type of saturated fat in the coconut oil is much easier used at MCT, the medium chain, versus palm oil is not an MCT. But we're not talking a lot here. We're talking, it's just enough to make that thing shelf stable. And these are not products that I'm eating every single day either. So this is what I would say in a moderation. I'd rather you have sustainably raised palm oil in these little bits than having boatloads of butter, lots of not sustainably raised palm oil or other type of seed oil. So it's kind of one of those things where it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it's also okay to have in minimal amounts. are chocolate chips 100% dark chocolate? You know what? These are semi-sweet. These ones are semi-sweet. I prefer dark, 100% dark or 80% more, because you're actually going to get the most health benefit from a chocolate that's 80% or more dark chocolate. My family prefers semi-sweet when it comes to things in baking, because the more dark it is, the more bitter it is. So when it comes to a chocolate bar that I'm going to enjoy, I'm looking for 80% or more. But if I'm baking with stuff, I'm usually going to choose a semi-sweet, just because they're a little bit less bitter and that makes everybody else happy. And again, in the grand scheme of things, in my whole dish of the cookie bar, I'm not too worried about that not being super dark chocolate. Good questions. Saw some news from Tufts about tagatose being a good but rare sugar. Tagatose. I have never heard of this, Carolyn. Now I am going to go look that up. I've never heard of tagatose. Interesting. See, I'm always learning from you guys. I will look that up. If I can find some good info on tagatose, I will send it along with the recipes after class. Interesting. Oh, thank you. Send me the link. Yes, wonderful. I mean, Tufts usually has some good info, so that is cool. Okay, let me get these out. Any other questions? Pop those in the chat. This is good now. Yep. Look how cute. So cute. Imagine those in little heart shapes or little squares. That'll be fun. So we'll probably eat these on Friday or Saturday. Any other questions? Looks delicious. Thank you for sending me your email. So if you are registered for this class, I will be sending the link to the recording and the recipes. If you did not actually register, the recording will still be posted on our website and the recipes will be posted there. If you're from Mount SAC, it will be posted on your wellness website for your employee website. But if you want that direct link like later today with the recipes today and not wait for the recordings to pop up, then put your email in the chat if you didn't register. Is stevia a good sugar substitute? Yes. So stevia, monk fruit, and allulose are our very, very low glycemic sugar alternatives that come from natural sources versus a low sugar alternative that is artificial. So I do like stevia, I do like monk fruit, I do like allulose. The issue with stevia is it became so popular that it's very highly processed now, and a lot of times it's actually cut with other things. So if you're buying stevia, you might be getting like a quarter stevia and 3/4 erythritol, which isn't necessarily dangerous either, but it might cause some tummy upset. So if you like stevia, look on the ingredients that it is pure stevia and not stevia plus other stuff, so that it's not an ultra processed version of the sugar alternative. And some people don't like the taste of stevia, by the way. So if it has an off taste to you, that's normal. Some people love it, but if you don't like it, use monk fruit or allulose. Okie dokie. I think I got through everybody's questions. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. I hope you try some of these things and give them to your friends or colleagues or kids and grandkids. If you have another fun option that you like or that you tried an alternative of, I'd love to hear it. And join me on the 23rd. I believe that's a Monday. I will be teaching a webinar on the heart-brain connection. So we won't be cooking, we will be learning together. So definitely join that one. That's my next free webinar. And have a great Valentine's Day and a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining, everyone. Bye.